Fli-City got some dogs in it, dogs in it. Fli-City come off authentic, authentic. We light it up like sauce in the sauce in the We light it up like sauce in the sauce in the Fli-City got some dogs in it, dogs in it. Fli-City come off authentic, authentic. We light it up like sauce in the sauce in the We light it up like sauce in the sauce in the Rain may come, we cover for it, it's a cover charge. Cover charge. Pain come in, we force ourselves to be stronger for it. I'm stronger for it. Northside slum, prison bids, and I'm better for it. I'm better for it. Representing Fli-City, now make some noise. Random corners, pushing packs, looking back, hand ups, ain't seen no pass. Fli-City got a city tax, body bags, ski masks, crime rates, I speak to God. City giving rich vibes. Beat knocks through the speaker box, won't speak a lot, just move around. Water dirty, streets dirty, whip clean. We okay, we grew up all survival schemes, riding dreams, Lion King. The jungle seems like peace to me. Struggles led to victories, now picture me 6 months out, I'm on my feet, on the business. Talks with Maddie, on the business. Run the city, leak with all the minus since we bless the city with our agenda. Hustlers, open finish, all ideas is open to us. Just push your lane, this crooked man, and we straighten out. We straighten out what they tearing down. North side, south side, east side, west side, peace signs. We try to get this city get west side, north side, south side, east side, west side, north side, south side, east side, Fli-City got some dogs in it, dogs in it. Fli-City come off authentic, authentic. We light it up like sauce in the sauce in the We light it up like sauce in the sauce in the Fli-City got some dogs in it, dogs in it. Fli-City come off authentic, authentic. We light it up like sauce in the sauce in the We light it up like sauce in the sauce in the
My city experiencing a transition from penny pinching, maximizing our dollars, multiply triple digits. I came a long way from baby jars in a project kitchen. Nowadays, I read grab charts and just mind my business. All praise to the Most High, how this young king living. Resurrecting the spirit of Osiris, how I'm living. Hustle and motivate your local hope dealer. I'm on tour right now, and I'm dope with it. They lied to us, stole assets, still in crisis mode. Water warriors like 1,001, we will not fold. I'm sick of fugazi leaders and career politicians. The father said people perish due to lack of vision. It's time to rise, black lives, baby, it's on the flow. Bet it back, no 9 to 5, only 10 to 4. A city of monsters, a bunch of go-getters. We don't rock with starters, we too authentic.
We don't rock with starters, we too authentic.
We don't rock with
starters, we too authentic. We don't rock with starters, we too authentic. We don't rock with starters, we too authentic. We don't rock with starters, we too authentic. We don't rock with starters, we too authentic. We don't rock with starters, we too authentic. We don't rock with starters, we too authentic.
That's it.
All right, peace and blessings, peace and blessings,
peace and blessings.
Man, another glorious day, another opportunity to continue to find truth and conversation, and just trying to get greater understandings, because I think more or less, communication is the hardest thing to manage, and that's been an issue for a lot of different sectors and people and groups. You always want to be clear and be very direct. So, we appreciate having the opportunity to continue to put these platforms out there and have these discussions and just try to make sense of it. So, there you go. So, man, today, man, we got our very special brother in the house. Very, very active brother out here in the community. Always boots on the ground, even also, working on the front ends too. So, you can always appreciate people that, dedicated to the cause and, always, steady fighting for the greater good. A lot of times, a lot of work to be done, and we don't necessarily see the work, or we don't know who's behind it. just know that people are getting it in and working on your behalf. So I definitely want to give a big shout out to my brother, man. What's going on?
Hey.
How you feel, man?
I'm good, brother. How you feel?
All is well.
All is well?
Man.
Yes, sir.
Blessings, man. Brother Reggie Davison.
Yes.
Business owner, right?
That's right.
Water warrior, right? And just an active member in the community, man. The brother, the coach. So, what's going on, brother, man? How you feel?
Hey, man, just got off the grind a few minutes ago, and wanted to come up here and get my portion, but all is well, man. I mean, all is well. I'm on this side of the ground, and
right.
Every day is another day to grow.
Come on now. I think those are the things that we take for granted. Like, we still breathe, we wake up and get a chance to live another day. Just another chance to see our children. Just another chance to pray to the Most High.
Yes.
I think those things are some things that we take for granted sometimes.
You're right.
We want it all. Brand new socks and drawers. Sometimes it ain't necessarily all like that. But to be honest, man, I do be thankful for another day, and just to be having warm blood running through my veins, and able to see out my eyes, and able to take in food, and in good health as best as I can be. And so those things are really very important, very vital.
Very, very important, man. A lot of times we just take for granted the most simplest things, and take more energy for us to frown than to smile.
Yep.
And, we just have to put one foot in front of the other and strive to be positive. And hopefully today I'm striving better than I was yesterday. Right. And tomorrow we have a higher mark.
Come on.
Just trying to operate under high civilization, I was taught the ego has to squat in order to rise. I said, what that mean? He said, the way down is the way up. So I know what it feels like to live in the mud, experience savagery. And what do I mean by that? A savage is one who's lost the knowledge of self and living a beast-like life.
Yeah.
And I've experienced all of that in my travels. But today, being on this side, I just try to impart what I can. See, we all have a portion.
Right.
And I think part of the struggle is to find out, how are you going to serve your portion?
Come on.
And just be as positive as you can. Participate in family life. That's very important. And you start with family and you work your way out. So, forums like this is very important, man, because y'all keep it real plain. Y'all make it very plain. And you just trying to talk directly to the people without no motive and no cut. And I just appreciate your forum, brother. It's an honor to be here. Man. And I need to give you the greetings from Brother Reggie Muhammad from the Joab and Nkrumah Institute down in Atlanta, Georgia, where the Reparations Declaration is headquartered at. He probably watching. He told me to make sure you give Brother Dewan and the folks a shout out. We're gonna try and bring him up here in April.
No, actually, definitely, man. Big shout out to Brother Reginald Muhammad, and definitely, activating on the reparations. I think, when I be talking and hearing the stuff, man, we be hitting on all cylinders. I think we got a lot of irons in the fire. A lot of people working on different things, and that's all inclusive to what we all trying to work on.
Yes.
So, just to hear that the advancement that's being made, and all the work that's going on, even in our Georgia area, man.
Yes.
Just for reparations as a whole, I think that's beautiful. So, big shout out to the brother Reginald. Right.
Yeah, that's right.
And we definitely want to hope to see you soon, man. We definitely plan to see you soon.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. So just give us some background about you, right? So a lot of people know you as Reggie Davison, who has the building on Flushing Road.
That's right.
You operate a few businesses in there. If you need a business space, where you contact the brother, man, he might have some locations for you.
Yeah.
But we see you on the front end. We see you on this end. Clean cut. I think you just spoke and elaborated, or just kind of pointed to. You came up from the same situations and conditions as a lot of these brothers out here, man.
Oh, absolutely.
That's trying to make a way, but and then you're making a way, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the thing of reaching back and making sure you bring some folks with you, and that's vital to the success of all of us, right? Your success is my success, and I always see you being a representation of it. So tell us how. Just give us a for folks who may not necessarily know you other than what they see from you. Give some bits.
Well, I was raised in Flint.
Okay.
I went to Daly, I went to Dolan, I went to Holmes,
Okay.
I did some time at Flint Northern before I left down to Ohio and finished school in Columbus
Right.
with my dad.
Right.
You know, I've done a tour of duty in the School of Hard Knocks. I've, you know, sales is kind of like my background. I was blessed to go to HBCU, Central State University, in Wilberforce, Ohio. And I mean, just beautiful cultivation and back and forth from various different places. And mama got really sick. So when I got back on my feet, I came back to Flint, you know, and I started out paralegaling independently for a few attorneys, doing Scrivener work, paperwork, motion practice, things like that, that evolved into me having an opportunity to get off into real estate a little bit. Acquired a few properties as just as an investor and flipped them, and opportunity presented itself, and I was able to acquire the Flushing Professionals, what is now known as the Flushing Professional Suites, over there on 3160 Flushing Road. It's about 13 micro businesses operating out of there.
Come on now.
And part of what I do is I help form with business formation, organization formation. If you have a nonprofit organization, I know how to get you 501c3 status. I know how to do the bylaws, the and the paperwork that's needed in order for you to be right there. Same thing with corporation, micro businesses, whether it's LLCs, single member LLCs, multi-member LLCs, or even LLCs that want to operate like an entity. And so corporate formation was my specialty. And I kind of got off into that. And an opportunity presented itself. I was with an attorney out of Detroit, Attorney John Simpson, a brother who he actually owns a restaurant downtown Detroit called Savannah Blue. It's off of Town Hall.
I've had that
and it's like a warehouse.
Yeah.
And so that brother owns that, but he's an attorney. Okay. And I mean, very conscious brother. He went to U of M, but he went to Florida A&M too, HBCU. Okay. So he introduced me one time to come on up to an event at Metropolitan. Hugh Harper and them was up there. And from there, I remember I was doing some work with the water filtration systems, Flint Restoration Group and Artesian. And that we were at a meeting together with the concerned pastors, and that grew into me being introduced to a firm he was working with, Napoli Skolnick, to do some paralegal work on the ground. Because, you know, they was doing everything from New York and Detroit. And so I came in just doing paperwork, Scrivener work, helping process retainers and documents, signing people up. And so, you know, I worked out of my office. And next thing you know, they was sending stuff to my office, and they was setting up shop. I was like, oh, wait a minute, that sounds like a rental agreement to me. So that parlayed into just that. It parlayed into a full-fledged office. So people in Flint had a place to actually come and do their paperwork. And since that time, you know, whether it was University of Michigan, my community college students that was pre-law, and things like that. At one point, we had over 17 people hired and working out of the office. So I managed the intake center for Napoli Skolnick, that between them and their partner clients, whether that's Ben Crump Law, we have about 20,000 of the water crisis clients that we're managing.
Okay. So just in general, you was activated on the ground, and some of these partners, you know, during the water crisis kind of came up, and they saw the effort. They saw, you know, that this was a space where community members can come to, right?
Absolutely.
And they feel like they can be serviced. Right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. And you know, oftentimes, man, when you come into a community, if you're smart, what you'll do is you'll get people from the community to help you with whatever it is you're trying to do.
That's true.
And there's a stigma, in some cases, an earned stigma that comes along with litigation and law, because you will be looking for something other than but these lawyers, this is how they eat. So when they come, they're doing it for the cause, but they're doing it because that's how they eat.
Right.
So what I tried to do is be real clear about that with people. These are not nonprofit organizations, and they're gonna come in, and law sometimes is very, very devoid of emotions. Law is like, what's the question, what's the issue, and how do we prove it?
Right.
Because if I can't prove it, I'm not getting nothing. You
Cut
know,
and dry.
and so, well, it seems cut and dry, but it's never cut and dry, because you're dealing with human beings, man. And people be having questions and issues, and you have to try and stay focused on your mission, and sometimes it's hard, but that's okay, you know. But yeah, I came in that way. I was actually doing activist work with this water filtration system. I really felt like it was an opportunity to try and put a filtration system in every single house while we was waiting on these pipes and this infrastructure to get fixed. So I found the man in Holly, and I was working with him. He had created a Filter King 03 system that can filter every drop of water coming in your house.
Right. Okay.
And I was working with business owners, working with business owners and raising funds to get these systems put in people's houses for free. Because the grant route was going to take too long with the impact statements and stuff. I went straight to businesses.
That's right.
And we formed a Flint Restoration Group and participated in some studies for about a year to make sure that thing was working. Before we actually went to go putting it in people's houses.
Right.
EPA came in and tested it. MDEQ came and tested it, even though it wasn't a lot of trust for them at the time. And when they kept coming back, non-detect for lead, non-detect for copper, we started putting them in houses, small businesses. I was helping people. Remember when the Pistons owner offered them grants for businesses, $10,000. Gorey offered them $10,000 grants for business, 100 of them. So $1 million worth of grants. Well, I teamed up with Tracy and them for the chamber and helped do paperwork for about 36 businesses, and 32 of them were able to get the grants. And part of what they got was the ability to get a filtration system put into their little small shops. Right. You know, some of the beauty barber shops around, they got them in there. We worked with them for that. Right. So that I went from doing that type of work into my profession, one of my professions, contract paralegalism. And as a contract paralegal, I contracted myself out to help do paperwork for people that was signing up for the suit. And as a paralegal, of course, I can't go into court. I was devoid of legal advice, but putting together a ground game to sign people up, having a place for them to come, rather than trying to do it over the phone. A lot of our seniors and adults, you know, it was a disservice because access was, it was a gap of access.
Right. It was.
It was a gap of access. And you would also was dealing with chronic and systemic mistrust because people's like, man, it's $50. I'm nothing to go through all these hoops, $50. And water crisis lawsuit.
Okay, yeah.
Think of, and I was telling the brother this, and then we can get into it. At the time, people need to understand this particular dynamic, and it may have been a question that you was asking me before the show start. And then, so I'm not going to get too far ahead of myself. Okay. How did we get to, you know, when we got to 600, and originally it was 641 million, 46 million on the settlement versus the 626 we had now, 641. So at the time of that settlement, it was barely 30,000 people signed up with the various different law firms.
Exactly.
So when you think about reaching a $640-something million settlement, of which the lawyers are going to get a third, how did you really arrive at that number? Well, one of the factors was the amount of people that was signed up. Okay. So when the deal was done in August of 2020, that's about what you had signed up. The judge waited a couple months and then announced in January of 2021, I'm a conditionally or preliminarily accept this settlement. Now, normally when a settlement is accepted, me and you are suing each other and we reach a settlement, that's it. We don't go no further with nothing. Right. We start processing the settlement. Right. What a judge kept the settlement open and said, oh, by the way, all y'all who wasn't signed up at the time the settlement was reached, because normally that's when the settlement stops. It's based on the people that was there at the time.
The 30,000 people that was originally signed up.
So she, So she opened the door up for another 3 months till March the 29th. and you had almost the same amount of people sign up in 3 months that had signed up in 6 years. So now you have almost double the amount of people on a suit that was designed for just those original 30, but the money didn't increase.
Right.
The money didn't increase.
Exactly.
It stayed the same.
Right.
So now you weed out if people signed up 2 or 3 times, you weed out if a person actually gonna get anything or not. Because unfortunately, you have to put on proofs. You're not getting money just because you're from Flint. Now, if you leave it up to me, you're gonna get some money just because you're from Flint. But no lawsuit works that way. And all lawsuits require proofs. And I think a lot of people are misinformed, and I hope we go into that because it's proofs you have other than just lead that can get you compensation. And we fourth quarter 2-minute warning. So we at the end of this end of the game, but you still can submit some information if you have signed up to make sure you're going, because don't think because you signed up, you're getting some loot. You better check with your lawyer or whoever you signed up and say, hey, did I qualify for anything?
Right. So
Now,
that's the thing. That's a question in itself, right? Because people may think just because you signed up for the water crisis settlement that you're automatically going to get something out of it.
No such thing as automatic in law.
So that's something that definitely for those who did make the claim or they did set up and sign up with an attorney or a firm, then you want to be able to have communication, constant communication, and ensuring that you qualify and be able to receive their settlement amount when it comes down the pipeline.
That's correct.
Now that's definitely, that's just doing your due diligence. And, just with any settlement, any lawsuit, you want to make sure you follow up. So just kind of, I guess, taking all that information and let's look at this. When we talk about the Flint water crisis, right? In itself, man, how did we find ourselves in this situation? Basically, how did we get here to this point of where we are right now? And when we're talking about at this point right now, you have to look at the history.
That's correct.
So taking a look back, how did we end up in this mess?
Let's take a quick look back.
Okay.
So, Flint from like the early 1900s to 1960, according to the research, Flint used to actually get its water from the Flint River.
So from the early
1900s to like the 1960s, Flint was getting water from the Flint River was a source of water
for the city of
Flint. People was consuming, but General Motors went on steroids in the 60s. They started putting plants up. The amount of people in Flint, it was almost 200,000 at one point. So that water supply was inadequate. So you had to go to a bigger water supply and a cleaner water supply,
right? Because
things started happening to the Flint River. I ain't just talking about body doubles, but all kind of stuff started happening. Because think about it. If you look at all of the plants, they have like waterways, man. You see them cement waterways, and they running somewhere. They, even if they running off into lagoons and aquifers, that's going back to the river. So water goes from ponds and stuff to streams to a river, and the river try and make its way out to the lake, and the lake make its way out to the ocean. And if there's interruption anywhere in that process, then Mother Nature will give them toxins to the land, and she'll pollute the water. It will be unusable. And so that's what happened. We had to get up off of Flint water. And when we got up off Flint water, we got on Lake Huron water. Right. We got on Lake Huron water. We was working with the Detroit Water and Sewer Department. They were getting the water from Lake Huron, purifying and cleaning it, and it created pipelines that came all the way to a hub in Flint. And so Flint and Genesee County was getting Great Lakes water. Right. And so, that worked for Flint for a long time. Now, Flint came to a place where we got on emergency management. That's right. So 2000, prior to the water crisis of 2014, 2013, 2012, we had Whaling as a mayor, and we had the city council, but they were symbolic because the city of Flint was being controlled by the state through an emergency manager and then an RTAB board. And so
two levels of oversight
from the state.
right, over the state that was over elected officials here in the city of Flint. So they really wasn't making no calls. And they really couldn't make a call because they was under receivership.
We were not operating as a sovereign city
Right.
with duly elected officials
Yeah.
and the mayor. Their jobs was usurped. The democratic process was usurped under this so-called emergency management law because Flint couldn't handle the money, right?
Right.
But funds coming to Flint was shrank, and in my opinion, there was a systematic effort to attack the most fundamental way Flint raised money, and that was through its water. So here you got an African American city, Detroit, providing water to an African American city, Flint, and Detroit was making money. Now Flint rates was high. So and then there was some things happening that was causing question to us getting, but Detroit went broke. Detroit went under receivership. So you got Detroit under receivership, Flint under receivership, this of the state. So somebody in the state started rubbing their hands along with what you find in any community. Let me just say this to everybody. What you find in every community, and you can, I'm telling you, you can find these dynamics. I have to use pen and paper. You find there's a power base. There's a privilege base. No. There's a power base is in this order. There's a profit base. Which creates a policy base. Of course. And then a privilege base. Okay. So then 4 P's. Who control the power locally, statewide, federally, that's generating the profit, that's creating the policy, and that's working the privilege. Right. So the power base now over these cities is the state. And the state looking at things like, what is some of the biggest sources of money for these 2 cities? Water. Everybody pay for water. Property taxes, water.
And let's say that though, right? For each municipality, when you talk about earning income for a city, right?
That's right.
One of the main sources is water. Right?
It's water.
Especially if Flint is paying very high rates when you compare it to other cities and municipalities around the country. That was a big price tag for Detroit.
Correct.
Who was originally who we was getting our source from.
That's correct.
The state seen it as a financial opportunity to intervene.
That's correct.
Because 2 of the cities, 2 of the major cities in Michigan,
absolutely,
Flint and Detroit,
make no mistake about
it,
was under receivership.
So how can we capitalize?
Off this? Okay. Well, austerity measures come in with, if you bring me in, if I bring you in, because if you brought in because I can't handle my money right. The first thing you finna do,
this remind me, not to cut you off, don't lose your thought.
Come on.
This remind me of what's going on when we have to hire a firm to help us spend some money. Right? You know what I'm saying? It kind of feel like you got to hire people
to help you spend money,
do the job that you was hired to do.
Right.
I think,
well, we don't, from cradle to grave in our community, especially, we have to step up to start teaching financial literacy.
We do.
Or how to live within our means. You know what I mean? In our community, a lot of times when you in poor communities, brother, you deprive, when you get a little money, it go inside one hand and out the another. You don't save 5% and never look at that anymore, or take a little bit of the money to reinvest, because you live in hand to mouth. You're just trying to provide food, clothing, and shelter. Right. Or if you do have a little change, especially some of our brothers who gain money from the untaxed underground economy, then a lot of times they'll have their savings in their pocket, or they'll be wearing it on their neck, or they'll be driving it. Right. So
it might be at the shoebox at the crib,
and the shoebox collection be on it be on swell. So what happens is we have to be really, really careful to look back at what they did. What they did is said, let's deal with this water. Plus, Flint, even though it received water from Detroit, it was a provider of water to the county. The county, all of us was using that same hub that was coming in from Detroit going out. So Flint was kind of like the distributor or supplier of waters. So what happened under this?
Hone in on that. Flint was
a supplier or distributor of water.
Right.
So under this emergency management,
and who are we supplying water to?
To the city of Flint and the Genesee County.
So it's a thing where the city of Flint was
Flint
providing-
Township,
yeah,
Grand
providing
Blanc,
sources to the outer county,
the outline.
Yeah.
So that process got interrupted. There was a united front of the MDEQ, the our drain commissioner, Jeff Wright.
Jeff Wright, right?
He's been our drain commissioner for 16 years, and he went on a tour to point out how corrupt the Detroit Water and Sewer Department was. And Detroit Water and Sewer Department lost its ability to distribute and regulate water to all these places outside of Detroit, and the KWLA was formed. You know, the KWLA or GLEWA, I'm sorry, the GWLA, the Great Lakes Water Authority, GLWA, that was formed to that took over. It was still coming through Detroit now,
right?
But that took over how we were getting water. That came about when they when they were on receivership.
When Detroit lost their receivership, they lost it to the GLA.
To the GLWA. GLEWA. We just gonna call it GLEWA. So GLEWA was trying to go up on them rates a little bit and things like that. And these powers said, we don't really want to be getting our water through Flint directly anyway. Now this me talking. We'd rather turn Flint into what they would say on the street, a custo, and we would rather make Flint become a customer instead of a dealer of water. So we're gonna build our own pipeline and have we're gonna still get it from the Great Lakes, from Lake Huron, but we're gonna build our own pipeline and wax rich with it being built, $220 million project, and bring this all the way on into Flint, and Flint will get its water still from the Great Lakes, but from the KWA, that Caradonic, that pipeline. So somebody had to agree with that. Now they came up with, we're gonna save water or money. We're gonna come up on this, the emergency manager. We're gonna come up off this Detroit deal. And they tried to make it seem like, and I got all of the articles. I brought them all to the brothers. So I can't show you all the articles. I'm gonna be summarizing, but I'm gonna leave the articles with the brother. Okay. So what they did is they played like Flint didn't want to pay through the Great Lakes Water Authority. They didn't want to enter into a new contract with them. It wasn't that Flint didn't want to enter into a new contract with them. They tried to play it like that body cut Flint off. But how they cut Flint off and then keep all of the suburbs still on? The suburbs stayed on getting water from GLEWA. So do it make sense to you that they would cut Flint off, tell Flint, you got to get your stuff from the Flint River now, or was something else going on? Something else was going on. So they said, we're going to save what, $2 million getting our water from the Flint River. We're going to transition into it, and we're going to make our own pipeline that's going to be cheaper. But the new pipeline they was making, there was never any testimony or declaration that was going to be cheaper than what we was getting from Detroit. It was just a new pipeline. And Detroit could have remained a secondary source all that time, but somebody said, we'll save money. We have a water plant. We can get our money from the Flint River. Now, that was under the state's leadership of the emergency manager, the United Front, Jeff Wright, who was as the drain commissioner, lobbying that we do a source other than corrupt Detroit. And he swore it wasn't racial. He swore it was economic. So you have these two. Now, how can you make this happen? How can you, number one, how can Flint, which was asked to pay 35% of the KWA pipeline, Flint needed to come up with 85 million for this KWA pipeline. Flint didn't have the ability to raise money because Flint was broke.
Right.
Normally, when a municipality want to do new roads, do bridges. Sometimes it get block grant appropriation. And a lot of times municipalities, they'll issue a bond. It's called a municipal bond to raise money. Lawsuits are paid for with municipal bonds. When officers be beating down folks and get caught up and get sued, they have to pay. Sometimes a municipal bond is raised to do that. But you have to. You
don't have the resources.
Well, you have to qualify. You have to have a rating or the resources to be able to say this community can generate money without breaking itself to do a municipal bond to finance this. So how did Flint, who was broke, get a municipal bond approved in order to do the KWA? See, when you start following the money and asking the questions, you're going to see how we ended up on the Flint River and how we got poisoned. So here you had to have a few things happen. Now, when you broke, there is a path forward to be able to raise money through a municipal bond when you broke, but an emergency or a disaster have to be created in order for you to then get approval to be able to create this. So something called an administrative consent order was needed. But before the administrative consent order, there had to be an environmental enforcement action, a problem. An environmental problem had to be created to allow the plan to break us away from Detroit water before we have our pipeline ready, to cause us to have to go on to another source in the interim. And a person named Nicole Sicardo, who was a enforcement specialist in the DEQ's Water Resource Division, she wrote in December 19, 2013, an email to her division chief, William Creo, basically saying somebody's trying to put together a sweetheart deal, or what is called an administrative consent order for us to approve. It was a little sludge lagoon of sludge running out of the Flint water plant into this little lagoon. And they wanted an administrative consent order to clean that up to the tune of $85 million. And they added language. Who is they? Now we talking about the bankers, JP Morgan, Wells Fargo. These bankers that was putting this bond together knew that in doing their due diligence, you had to be able to get this Flint qualified for a bond. So because Flint was broke, they knew that if it was a problem created, then an administrative consent order could be given by the state through the MDEQ to raise some money that can not only fix this little lagoon problem, but also pay for Flint's portion of making this pipeline. And that's what happened. But when they did that, they hired Land, the engineering firm, to help participate in this Lang, and to help participate in this study to say we can switch over to we can switch over to the Flint River. We had a capacity to treat it where it can be usable until y'all get this pipeline on. We can come up off of the Detroit water all together, and we can treat this Flint water. See, it's almost like I'm going to create a problem so bad that you're going to be so focused on the problem, you're going to go to sleep on the fact that I'm doing an overlay for the underlay and creating this pipeline that's going to make people millionaires. And I'm going to change you from being a distributor of water to a seller of water. And you're going to be so worried about getting up off this Flint River fast to this new source that you're going to miss the fact that I'm doing an overlay for the underlay. So we ended up on the Flint River. Now they pulled a boss move.
You made a valid point, and you talked about the bankers. A lot of people didn't even say, how the banking institution played a part in the Flint water crisis. Right? See what they did. Now, I want you to go in, and it sounds like you're going somewhere.
No,
I would say, can we get a quick commercial real quick? Maybe the video real quick, that 30-second joint.
Yes, sir.
Just so that way we can kind of recalibrate. So, you tune in Fli-City Blackout. We'll be right back after this quick commercial.
Okay.
We light it up like arson and sauce and sauce. We light it up like arson and sauce and sauce. Fli-City got some dogs in it, dogs in it, dogs. Fli-City come off authentic, authentic. We light it up like arson and sauce and sauce. We light it up like arson and sauce and sauce.
My city experiencing a transition from penny pinching, maximizing our dollars, multiply triple digits. I came a long way from baby jars in a project kitchen.
Because he wanted to.
Hold up 1 second.
What we doing,
I
man?
just got the camera on.
Yes, yes.
Back good to go. All right, so we tapping back in.
Yes.
So we just definitely were just kind of going into the Flint water crisis, the origins of it, and just really kind of getting some clear understanding of how did we find ourselves in this mess. Because a lot of times, the situation happens is you find yourself in a situation, you find yourself in these places, but then you never know how you get here. Like we'd be upset about us drinking Flint water.
That's right.
Just in general. But we didn't understand the play-by-play that was taking place before we even got hooked up on the Flint River water. And so those things, when you follow the money, when you follow the money, and then you kind of understand where this leads back to, where you talked about how I went to our drain commissioner, how he went on his crusader tour to go ahead and denounce Detroit, right, and their ability to function properly, and which took us off the hook as their number one consumer, right, for getting water from Detroit, and then taking us to the Flint River, which we know that we didn't want to drink from the Flint River. I've heard plenty of stories from my uncles and just people from the past about the Flint River, so I just didn't know why we even thought that was a source. So we cried about it, we got upset about it, and then it took us off the Flint River, and then I guess it bonded us into the KWA.
So yeah, we could have stayed on Detroit water while we transitioned to this new pipeline.
Right.
We could have done that. Why didn't we? Because as you stated, it was a movement by a united front of state officials.
Okay.
And our own drain commissioner to cut us off from dealing with Detroit Water and Sewer, which later became GLEWA, Great Lakes Water Authority, because even though we were buying from them, African American city to African American city, the water was hubbing in the Flint and then going out to the counties,
which it should have been.
Right. So Flint was like a distributor.
That's right.
And was buying wholesale from Detroit,
and was able
and the suburbs was the custos. So what ended up happening is now they done flipped Flint through this KWA and bond process into being the customer.
So just in a nutshell, man, Flint was serving. We were serving product, right? We were serving water to our suburban areas, right? Our outskirts.
And ourselves,
of course, ourselves. And then through the series of the Flint water crisis and the situation that took place for them to monopolize the water here in Michigan, they really put us in a customer position, right? Where now, not only now we buying water from these sources, right? When we was providing the water from these sources. And I want us really kind of hone in on these different ways of looking at it, right? Because if you put it in that term, in a basic term, right, that Flint was a provider, Flint was servicing folks to only find themselves in a position to be serviced now.
And we have to pay 35%. We for 30 years we paying on this bond. Now Flint water crisis supposedly began in April 2014. We began to use the Flint River as a temporary, it's supposed to be a temporary water source in order to cut costs,
right,
to save money. That's what early our emergency management said. We're gonna go to the Flint River. Their short version was to cut costs. And
why do you always talk about cutting costs when it always put us in a situation where it costs us more?
Because they were just looking at the gross water costs from Detroit versus the gross water
Port Huron.
From Port Huron or this new pipeline. But you have to factor in how much it's going to cost to build the pipeline, how much it's going to cost to bring Flint treatment plant online to be able to process Flint River water. If you would have did that economically, it wouldn't have made sense to leave Detroit water. That our costs got higher, and Flint ended up having to hold the bag and Flint wasn't. The point is, we wasn't even qualified to get the bond. So how did we get a bond that we wasn't qualified for? Yeah, if you start asking these type of questions, that's going to go toward the power base. It's going to start going toward the profit base, and you'll start seeing who in the heck was really benefiting off of these things. You got to start. Did anybody own? It's raising questions. Did any Flint officials, state officials, people own property on this KWA pipeline that's being constructed from Port Huron to Flint? Because there was an effort back in the day to build a pipeline from a regional source, but they found Flint officials and others had went out. They had inside information. They went and bought land on the route that the pipe was coming so they can make loot reselling the land. So did any of that take place here? Do we know that? Who waxed rich? We knew that the engineering firm that the bond company used, Land and Rowe, came up with reports to say whatever they needed to say. The Flint River water is going to be safe. People are going to be able to drink from it, and we got poison. And so the part that's not being talked about a lot is the construction, the bonds at the center of the lawsuit, because a lawsuit was filed about this finally. It was kind of quiet. A lot of people didn't know that law firm Levy Konigsberg, which is also one of the mass tort law firms, in 2020, they filed a lawsuit against the banks. Yeah, they filed JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, and Stiefel Nicholas and Company, the consultants.
For them producing the bond.
See, this is what I'm trying to tell you. The bond process, if you believe the facts that's being presented, was illegal. So the dispositive question is and was. It's an is and was. When Sister Weaver was in, the advice she got was, man, this deal was made before I came in. It's nothing I can do about it because it was made beforehand. And they did pull an overlay for the underlay move when we was under receivership. They temporarily gave power back to the city council and back to Mayor Dane Wellen to vote to agree to pay for the KWA pipeline. Ain't that a buster? They temporarily gave him power and said, you got to vote for this. They voted for it. The city council 5-4. Mays was on the council at that time. He wouldn't go for it. So we're going to have to give y'all a whole list of those people. I know a few of them. I'm going to call them out on here, but I'm going to give y'all the list because I want to be 100% when I say it and not say 2 or 3 of them and not say the whole team. But I don't care. Mays, my guy, I will tell you, he voted no. So what happened was these people were used so that once we come out of receivership, if the new administration say, oh, that was made under receivership, we reject that. Right. That argument was going to fail because they gave power back to the city temporarily to agree to this. And so they tied the new administration hand before they even could come in. So the administration did the best they can. The sister got us a $1.8 million savings over the 30-year life of the bond, and they got the money, the $444,000 a month we were supposed to be paying until the KWA before it came online. When she got us back on Detroit water, she made the GLEWA give us a credit for the amount of money that we was paying there. So she tried to play the hand as best she could.
With her hands was tied.
Why her hands was tied. And
I do want to go back to that point about we've allowed the banks off the hook, right? We just we never really talk about.
We never really talked about the banks
when they offered that bond, right, for that $85 million, right? So what is their responsibility in the Flint water crisis, and what could be done to address the banks?
Their responsibility is we got on Flint River because of this bond deal. That's we cut off staying with the Detroit because they wanted to create it. They had to create a problem in order to get the bond passed. So they used the little lagoon off the Flint water to be cleaned up as a linchpin. So they got the state of Michigan through the MDEQ Water Resource Division to give what is called a sweetheart administrative consent order. This administrative consent order was given to clean up that little sludge, but it was expanded to include financing the KWA pipeline. And we have some articles on that. I'm gonna leave you with the sweetheart bond deal aided Flint water split from Detroit. Wow. And it shows how the bond, the administrative officials use an administrative consent order or ACO between the DEQ and Flint that was put together despite resistance, suspicion, and buck passing officials made. And one of the things about it is said, once water from the Flint River started to flow into Flint homes, members of the United Front, and the United Front that they're talking about is Jeff Wright, the MDEQ, and the bondholders' attorneys, because they got the MDEQ to give this administrative consent order to say you got to clean up this sludge, but they added all this language to raise this money for this bond, which then allowed Flint, who didn't even qualify for the bond, to get the bond, and the banks were able to get the deal done. Otherwise, the banks could not have got the deal done. We would have never been on Flint River water at all. And that's why one of the law firms, Corey Stern and Levy Konigsberg, sued the banks recently and said, and he's suing them for $2 billion.
They should.
For $2 billion.
How would that go back? How would that benefit Flint though?
Well, I'm because he used 2,600 Flint children to do the suit.
Okay.
And we trying to see if he can open that mug up to put more, because $2 billion is much more than 600 billion. Wow. And so what's
he had the right numbers. That would be the right idea.
Reverse that, because if the deal is deemed to be illegal, and that's what me and you was talking about, Charlie LaDuff and the other brother was talking about that, because what they were basically saying is that independent guy that Schutte hired to prosecute, he started following the money, and he found this, and he basically said, this is illegal. And if it turns out that this is illegal, then what happens is that bond deal could be void.
If he finds that is illegal,
yeah. I mean that could have happened any time along the way. Anybody could have challenged the bond deal as illegal because Flint wasn't qualified to raise money for the bond. Flint was broke. Okay. So what I'm saying to you all is, this was been a quagmire from the beginning, but RICO charges could have been brought against the state officials, because all you need is 5 overt acts under Title 21 United States Code 856, the RICO racketeering. You need 5 overt acts of something illegal, and all these folks could have been thrown up under RICO. Now, I think a couple of our locals would have been roped up in it. So politically, I don't know if some smoke-filled room deal was made to drop that investigation when the new folks came in, because there might have been some dolphins caught up in the net trying to catch tuna. Might have been some dolphins in the net.
That definitely could have been the case. I think.
And,
But
and
even then, when you talk about, Shooty bringing up those RICO charges on Snyder.
well, actually, it was an independent person tied that was hired
by Shooty.
By Shooty, correct.
Mm-hmm. And so, but they were ready to bring RICO charges on.
They was investigating RICO charges.
Mm-hmm.
They hadn't quite filed them, but that's where they was going. That's where the evidence was going.
So how did that
get which could have unraveled this bond deal in KWA?
So I guess that's what I'm trying to get to. How did that unravel? Like if you're on a pathway to charging these folks with this level of crime because it's warranted. How did that unravel? How did we not follow through? Why did we not follow through? Because wouldn't that raise the settlement amount?
Not necessarily, but potentially. But you got to understand, now you're talking about two fronts. Mm-hmm. One is criminal and one is civil. The criminal is prosecuted by the Attorney General's office.
Okay.
No private lawyers can criminally prosecute anybody. That's done by the Attorney General's office, or it would be like David Layton, if it was the county. So you had a criminal investigation going on, and you had the civil. The civil is the lawyers that came in and they suing for money. The criminal is to put you in penitentiary. This one put you in penitentiary, this one to get you money. Now this one was going strong for a minute. Then when the new administration came in, they did not pursue it because it was also some Trojans, according to what I understand, put in there that was going to let these officials be able to put up a defense. It was going to be a go through the motion trial, but it was going to be tough to shake that RICO. You was going to be able to shake some of them other ones, but that RICO was going to be tough. Mm-hmm. Somebody was going down,
right?
Because that was going to be federal, and federal got just as much resources as the state, if not more. Yeah. The judges have lifetime appointments, unlike judges have to run for an election. Mm-hmm. on a county and state level, or federally, judges appointed to life. So them judges, they almost have God complexes because they can go against all grains and do whatever they want to do with very little consequences. I mean, they rule by ethics. About their job. Absolutely. Worried about losing their job, voted out and that. So when the new administration came in, you recall they dropped all of the charges. Under the guise that we was going to, but if you study law, if you study why she dropped, it appeared to be good reasoning, because some of the investigation was really shoddy, and what she was going to do because of statute of limitations. You ever heard your case is dismissed without prejudice? If you dismiss a case with prejudice, you can't bring it back up again. Mm-hmm. But if you dismiss a case without prejudice, you can bring it back up, which normally restarts the investigation phase. Mm-hmm. So her aim was to restart the investigation stage, and she filed motions and was getting phone records that had been destroyed, though, and emails and stuff that had been destroyed. She was trying to get them physical devices to reverse engineer them and see what she can get and things like that. So her intentions was good, but I would have never dropped the RICO. You came back with misdemeanor charges and stuff like that, even though public officials have, sovereign immunity and 11th Amendment immunity, that RICO was going to be hard to shake. But boy, that was going to be hard to shake.
I still don't see the reasoning, though, right?
That's the question. What you bringing up
from a RICO to misdemeanor charges?
What you bringing up is the question. You bringing up the question. Somebody got to answer those questions. Right. Why did you drop where the investigation was going? Now, the RICO charges were not issued, but that's where the investigation was going.
Direction of the investigation.
So why did you not continue that investigation?
That's a real question.
That's a real question
that we need to know.
Because what happened was the bonds got approved. Mm-hmm. We came off of Detroit water and we went on the Flint water, and everybody got poisoned.
You know why they didn't do it?
Yeah, power.
Yeah, because
money.
Off that story with Charlie and Jordan Sheraton, like they said, they could show where it was Republicans and Democrats, and they said it was low-level Democrats in Flint that was complicit.
Just what I'm trying to tell you. Dolphins in the net, baby. See, at some point, power transcends party.
Right.
Power don't care nothing about party. Power and profit will transcend your enemy. You befriend your enemy sometimes for the sake of power and profit. And so that's why I said we can never forget the 4 P's. Power and profit entered into this, and poor people suffered. A town that we distracted now. We attacking the lawyers that's trying to get us money, and we not even dealing with the lawyers that's supposed to be prosecuting these folks that got the power to get them criminal charges. And so if you start attacking me and I'm trying to get you money, I'm going to get mine and get on down. Because man, this is too much for me. I can go get me some loot somewhere else, not to justify it, but to tell you the people have, and rightfully so, the people should attack everybody because the people have been abused. The people have been abused.
I can't see yours. I'm saying who up in here. I put a Dale Lewis and stuff. And I Chris, what's his name up on the screen?
Yeah, I can see those.
Yeah, see those are the ones I've been putting up on here.
So y'all, I'm telling you, the beginning of this lawsuit centers around an effort to get another pipeline that cut Detroit off, another city that went into receivership. And economically, could it have been noble? It could have been. Far be it for me to question some of the motives, but when you start wringing this stuff out like a rag, you start seeing money. This bond deal is a 30-year bond deal so look at it like this. When Flint went over to the Flint River water, the suburbs didn't. The suburbs didn't go to the Flint River. The suburbs kept getting water from Detroit. How is that? How is it that Flint? How is it, and why is it that Flint, why we waiting to go to the KWA, went over to Flint River water instead, and the suburbs said, we ain't finna drink out that Flint River water. You got to keep sending our water from Detroit. How is that? Because you had to create a problem in order for an administrative consent order to be given, in order for the bond lawyers to be able to do the bond. It was a money move at the expense of the people. That's why them banks need to be sued. They need to be sued, and we need to get other concessions like medical care for the next 30 years, the life of that bond or something like that.
So JP Morgan, and what was the other bank?
JP Morgan, Wells Fargo. Those were the two big banks. And it was a consulting firm or a bond issuing consulting group, Stifler or something. I'll give you the name. I'll give you the article where you can see who those actual people are. Those things really led to the origin with these austerity measures, so-called austerity measures by the emergency manager. But there was a united front of state officials, state departments, and to force us onto this Flint River water. We did not have to go on the Flint River water while we waited for the KWA pipeline to be built. The suburbs didn't, but Flint did, because Flint had to create a disaster in order to get the money for the bonds, because otherwise Flint didn't qualify for the money for the bonds because Flint was broke. I'm trying to say this is more nuances and details. And one of the things, be it the will of God, I'm working with this author down in Atlanta to one of the things, always go to the origin, to the root. When you go to the origin and root and things, then you'll understand better some of what happened. But I know you want to move on to a few other questions, but I just want to read y'all one more thing out of that about that United Front. Another key piece to the disaster big picture describes as the United Front, the formed by the emergency manager and mayor, which was Walling at the time, the KWA, and the Genesee County Drain Commission, and the state's Department of Environmental Quality, DEQ, and the Treasury Department. These entities and people all got together to make sure we was going to switch over to that Flint River water to create that disaster, so that bond can be financed, even though we were broke.
That's very telling. Like when you talk about the city of Flint mayor, when you talk about the drain commissioner, when you talking about
and this ain't me saying it. These articles don't attribute it to me.
No, yeah.
And listen, the former Genesee County prosecutor Art Bush, he had told the Free Press that he wanted to charge with money laundering related to campaign stuff, but I ain't gonna go off into that because I don't know none of that to be so I ain't gonna besmirch the man. But he basically, all of this stuff was leading up to some of the why on how we ended up on the Flint River. It was a sweetheart bond deal that aided us splitting from Detroit, getting on Flint water. That was the beginning of the crisis, because once on April 2014, we got on Flint water, the engineering firms that we hired that said it was doable, either they was derelict because we didn't do what we were supposed to do, because number one, it was going to take about 100 million to really make that plant do what it did. We never got no 100 million. So the appropriate anti-corrosives that you got to put in to clean up a river like the Flint River, even if it would have cleaned the water, anti-corrosives shook up the whole infrastructure, and pipes that was connected by lead that had film around them. The film got ate off by the corrosives. The lead started leaching into the water. The infrastructure started falling apart, and everybody got poisoned. And even if you didn't really get harmed or hurt, or had very little harm and hurt, you still were affected. And the lawsuits focused on the lead because, not just because it was low hanging fruit, but that's what the proofs and the evidence went. And anybody that honestly know anything about law is never going to be adjudicated, and the dispositive questions are never going to be based on how I feel. And I feel bad, man. People coming into the office bringing me their teeth or their kids that fell out, bringing me their hair in a bag. That I had to see that stuff, and some nights, man, it was rough, because people have really suffered, and it's like, damn, So when you don't get the money that could have been obtained for that suit was always going to be narrow. But there's so many other questions to ask about the monies that was appropriated under Obama to the state in the form of a block grant for the water crisis that trickled down. Where did that money go? 90 million still missing. The hundreds of millions that was raised philanthropically, where did that money go? You got to look at the nonprofit industrial complex, man.
They broke down a list of where all the agencies where those dollars would be distributed to. Some of them in Saginaw and Lansing.
Some of them at the YMCA in Lansing. 30 million to the cyber control of the state police.
Down at the Capitol. And I'm just trying to figure out, sometimes you have to look at, like, when that money came in, because there was an influx of money coming through the city. Everybody was dropping a bag off.
Everybody.
And like, when you look at it now, when you talk to them same folks, they think Flint is whole. They think they'll be good. Because it's been so long.
And that money, DeJuan, was much more controllable on where it would go than a lawsuit money. Lawsuit money going to be narrow and restricted. That money, y'all could have said, okay, we finna put all that money in the pot. How many households is it in Flint? Let's just shuffle it out to them. It could have been done like that. Why wasn't it? Where's all these people that's fussing? I just don't understand. But I do understand power, and I do understand profit. So you have a lot of complexes. You have a nonprofit industrial complex that's fiduciary over a lot of monies. Now, they do a good job, but just pass the money out. What you sitting on it for? For 9 to 10 years to get administrative freeze and trickle it out in the programs that you want? When people suffering right now, everybody, is enough money that came philanthropically to replace all of the households' infrastructures, but you didn't ask questions like, well, I'm not going to fix up the infrastructure for DeJuan's house, and he live in Grand Blanc, and he got 10 houses in Flint that he renting. I'm just going to fix up the houses of the homeowners. Okay, start there.
Right.
Start with the people that live in Flint that own their house.
But I got a problem with that too, Rich. When you talking about all the money that came through and it's not being distributed in a way that people can see it, like it's tangible, right? We don't see it necessarily as residents. We just know it was a bunch of money that came in. Now, so far as stakeholders that's in position, that's at the foundations, or at these philanthropic organizations that's received these dollars, like we we haven't even got the information, and it's not even been clear as what you've done with the money, right? Is it sitting in the bank account? You collecting interest? Like, what are we trying to do, and what is the plan? Because folks been struggling. We've been struggling, and we don't want it in the form of a weak program. Yeah, I'm just sick and tired of you trying to water us down. We're educating us, spending buku cash for education for some stuff that we already know and could do on our own. It's over for that. Like you said, it was a way that we could have distributed that money unrestricted and really,
in my opinion, in my humble opinion,
in our opinion, right?
Okay.
Unrestricted, because some of those dollars was unrestricted. They were just donating towards the cause.
Right. And you need a fiduciary.
Yeah.
So it ain't just thrown out in the street.
Right. But the problem sometimes,
although I'd have been all right with it just being thrown out, but
it would been at least would have reached the streets. A lot of times, you give it to these fiduciaries and they hold on to the money, like I said, they keep it in account, they collect interest, and they use it for administrative duties, right? But nobody can say like what I've received or what I've gotten from the money that was donated for the Flint water.
Now on balance,
not no filters. No, but that always happens. Like
it get filtered.
We get filters.
How come we can't get unfiltered money? Is what I hear you saying.
Yeah, in a sense, like how can we really get some of that capital, right? That's gonna be meaningful for where we are and what we need in the city. Not no filters, not no pacifier. Don't fix up the capital because nobody's going
what was that?
there.
19, 30 million.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
Which is a beautiful thing. It helps Flint, but that ain't what the money was for. Is that what it was for? Economic programs.
The community didn't say that. I think more or less, it should have been an emphasis on saying like, how do y'all want to do it? Just like with this money we got right now.
The 97 million.
How can we make this make sense for the residents
who've been impacted? And I was happy because we have to acknowledge positive flow. I was happy to see the mayor set up going to the people, because it's supposed to be a series of things happening, to ask the people what y'all want to do with the money.
Yeah.
Now, whether that's live or Memorex, that's gonna come out in the wash. And I know people feel certain types of ways, and I ain't never one to tell somebody how to feel. Feel how you feel, because if you don't, we just constantly getting screwed over.
Never get to
now look at us now, looking backwards, which is the question you asked about all. But what I'm telling y'all is so much money them already came through, but there's a disconnect from the power and the profit to the policies that's being made and the privilege. And these officials that's coming in here, that's why people be like, man, what is you doing? Why don't we have none of this? You ain't talking to these people. How did we ended up funding Lansing YMCA off of water crisis money? What part of that is cool? And why ain't we making Lansing YMCA pay us that loop back? I mean, see, we have to, these are systems though, that are in place that, as some of the activists say, always end up screwing us. So we gonna have to turn inward at some point and start taking control of our own economics, man. We're gonna have to, because we keep putting it in the hands of other people. Then it's just not gonna balance out. Come on, man, hit me with some more questions. You know I run off this part all night. Man. And I know it's some questions you wanted me to.
Bro got Mick just threw on the screen, so it was a statement. That's a joke and deflection with the.
I got one for you.
Okay.
I can answer any of them. Come on.
Let me get you.
Obama sold us out too.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Obama, you sold us out on a few things. I will have to stand strong.
What did Rich say? He painted the White House multicolors.
This is the one I want to put you down. So how you feel about this? Because I was kind of threw off of this one.
Where is it? I can't see.
I put it. I'll read it for you. It's from Liddell Lewis. It was about that.
Put it on the screen.
I got it on the screen.
What is it? No, you hire them to make sure you don't mess the money up. Flint has paid back plenty of grants.
Is that a true statement to that?
So
Now, there have been a tidal wave of grants, that micro grants. There's a lot of grants out there. That's true. We're talking about stratification right now. Stratification is concerned with how you distribute stuff.
That question was to what Juan said earlier about the compliance firm, when you're about to spend your own money.
Oh,
and this was her saying you hire them to make sure You hire them to make sure you don't mess the money up. Flint has paid back plenty of grant. I just want to know, is that a real valid question or statement that she made?
Yeah, because if I jack off, if I don't spend my money right, I'm actually going to forfeit my ability to steward my money. I'm going to either go into bankruptcy, and at that point, a bankruptcy trustee is going to be put in place to help me how to spend my own money. So before I get there again, sometimes you call in a financial advisor. Now, for a whole city, you bring in somebody that say, hey, these are the best ways to do it. Now, the question is, my only, so that could be valid, but from my personal pushback would be, why can't we hire as our controller somebody with them skill sets, who we paying? So we paying somebody over our money, and we got to hire somebody else too.
Yeah.
For our money. Why can't we have, so sometimes
you will hire in compliance. You will hire somebody. This is what I'm saying. If I'm going to hire the talent,
she's talking about best practices. I understand what she's talking about. She's talking about best practices.
And we get that, Liddell. We get that.
Because best practices require compliance. And if you ain't compliant, if you don't know how to do compliance, you bring in somebody. That's what I just asked you. That's what we was trying to get to. Get a CFO that know compliance.
Yeah.
It'll be cheaper.
Right.
Because no one wants to work for Flint. Okay. And so you might have a hard time attracting the appropriate talent to work for Flint. There's some truth in that. And because there's some truth in that, then you are reduced to having to hire compliance. These are what Liddell is speaking to, in my opinion, is part of the chronic and systemic mismanagement of money by a combination of things, probably having people in who didn't have the bandwidth.
Who may have been incompetent, and we understand
I'm
that.
trying to say it nice.
You don't hire those folks. No, that's just
yeah.
That's just for best practice purposes. If I know that you don't have the bandwidth to handle this position in this capacity, then I need to fill that capacity with somebody
that
who can, right? And that's
experience. Because you probably could have took that same money, Sister Liddell, and instead of paying the firm, give somebody else more money to come in and deal with this big problem. You're gonna have to give them hazard pay, and they're more accountable, because the other people gonna put together a study and tell you this how you're gonna do it, versus a CFO, like the brother said, that you under compliance, you under scrutiny. So in my opinion, I would raise the pay of the CFO to attract a CFO that has the bandwidth, and maybe even expand his or her team. Mm-hmm. So that they can get the appropriate help. And maybe that's what the compliance is. Maybe the compliance is a disconnected, neutral team that ain't put in by the bias of appointments and things like that.
What she's saying right now, we don't pay enough either. We are hiring accountants.
Oh my God. See,
don't they go back to leadership?
Well, it goes back to a lot of things. Absolutely, brother. And
I agree with you on that, Liddell. That's the thing.
She hitting on all cylinders with that.
We're not paying how we weigh. And she made a point about the toxic environment, because a lot of time when you're attracting talent, you gotta have folks who are willing to come to this, and they don't want to come to no mess, right? If I'm coming and I'm ready to come get to work, and I can't get nothing passed because we in meetings for 9-10 hours, then I probably will pass up on that opportunity.
I'm gonna pass
up. You paying me peanuts anyway.
So I would pay. I would pay Liddell and them more.
Right.
I would take the money for the compliance officer. I would pay Liddell and them more, and I would pay a CFO more with a team. Boy, you was on point with that one, cause
I was just asking because she's saying everything I'm saying is right. I ain't gonna agree with everything you're saying is right, but some things she's saying. No.
Yeah, I mean I don't yes anybody. So I agree that that's a point. Yeah. But I'm still, my position is, why can't we take the money for the compliance team and use that money to why can't city council work with the administration and say, before we give this money to an independent compliance team, why can't we take this same money and temporarily increase the pay of our CFO and the accounting team for the city, and we can even take some of that money and put it. Yeah, she went to go work for the Democratic team or something like that, and served under two different administrations, and because folks are overworked, don't even have clerks or paralegals or to help them with their job. So that is a management issue. Some of that is a management issue. How do you manage your resources? You got to bring somebody outside to help you manage.
That's all I'm saying. You paying the CFO how much? Over 100,000.
Mm-hmm.
You paying somebody 100-some thousand to tell you need to spend $1 million with a compliance firm. I'll fire the CFO, bring the compliance firm in.
Or somebody who has that scale ability. Right?
I'm not paying you no 160, brother, for you to tell me I got to get somebody else. I'm gonna just tell you that.
That's right.
I'm gonna get somebody who can do the job.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
That's all I'm saying.
and maybe consult or may have partnership that may have can do that.
Well, that's what the compliance firm is they're consulting us
right
on how to spend our money
right
properly, which, as the brother's saying, that's what the CFO is supposed to be able to do.
exactly. And then that's it.
And they be resigning. Well, money don't solve everything, but what that same money, I would think y'all would want to look at that first to say, can we increase the pay to attract the talent we need in-house before we take it out-house? Because you still have to manage that relationship.
Right.
You hiring a compliance firm, you telling me I can't do my job, get me some more assistance, even if that's above me or below me, and put together an in-house team and make it work, and quit fighting with each other. See, there has to be, at some point, brother, there has to be some cooperation between the administration and the council, because the council represents the people. They elected out of the wards for the people, but the administration also represent the people because the people voted for the administration. So right. To me, you have to rise above your indifference because you were voted in by a majority of voting people, which really is a small number. That's why you see so much people don't even come out and vote no more. The people that vote you in, but nevertheless, if that was the process, then you have to try and rise above to work with each other. The sister said basic money management 101. She absolutely right.
It seems like they don't know it here.
Yeah, no, I think we talking
about y'all hitting on all cylinders.
Like
y'all hitting on all cylinders.
They don't see the value. When you talk about the co-equal branches of government, they don't see the value in building with each other. It's like one side is doing one thing, Neely is doing one side with his administration and promising monies to different groups and this and XYZ. Then you got the city council holding these different functions in the community, and then they're asking for proposals and things of that nature and seeing where we should put these dollars into. And so, but it's not a conjoined effort. And, I'm just hoping that, when we talk about, electing leadership and electing people to put in place, you're putting people that's in place that can definitely rise above their own ignorance and egos and personalities, right? Because we didn't put you in there to do the things you're trying to do. We put you in there to work on behalf of the people. So when it comes down to it, that has been one of our biggest heals. Like when you talk about Flint, is folks working together. We gotta end the distrust, because I know folks been lied to, they've been bamboozled, they've been hoodwinked, they've been tricked, so they don't trust and they don't like certain folks. That's understandable. But when we come into the table, when we trying to make a difference, then it's like, hey, I'm gonna leave that at the door, and then I'm gonna come in and handle business, and go get busy because we got stuff to do. And then maybe when we walk out, maybe we can deal with it then. But that's the type of leadership that Flinters need. When you was talking about all these folks that sold us out, that United Front, and I ain't gonna say you, but what
No, I was talking about it.
What was it?
I was showing the articles, but
what was in the articles, right? About a United Front. When you got all those different players that supposed to be representing for the constituents, and they looking at it from a Money Magazine plan. They thinking about how we gonna go ahead and capitalize off this, right? So how can we disillusion what's really going on, have folks all in a frenzy where you fight about one thing, but the actual and the activity going on over here, and we able to push that because y'all so disenfranchised.
Well, if you poison me with water, I don't care what the next source is. Just get me off this water. You don't poison me with Flint water. What's the next source? KWA? Yeah, hurry up and put us on that. because we can't take this no more.
Yeah.
See, so that's just what you said.
You see Liddell question, she said, reach out to your mayor, express that, or reach out to your council person, express that. What you was talking about.
And help your mayor and help your council person.
Hey Liddell, I reach out to mayor. I reach out to Neely and reach out to the council folks, and as a concerned citizen, man, I've always came here positive light and trying to make the best out of the situation. So, we do got to find a way to work together, right? The current administration, city council, and the community, because we all have to go ahead and make this work for all of us. So, in a nutshell, we do, but folks got to reach back. People got to be willing to sit down. People got to be willing to understand and listen to other folks. Stop being so much about what type of drives and initiatives that they trying to put down, and see what's best for the whole class. And that's what we don't get a lot of the times. We always feel like we just catching on the bandwagon.
And let me say this to that, and please let's move on. See, when I talk to Neely, I don't just express a grievance. I say, now, this is what I'm doing. What can I do? Because sometimes you have to ask, what can you do? Now, if you tell me just go over here and hold some personal flag, I'm gonna tell you, look you straight in your eye and say, no, I ain't gonna do that. But there is some, for example, Liddell, Neely, the city council could do things like this that can help some people. We got the Genesee County Land Bank. Many of the homes are Flint administration and Flint City Council, from where they sit, can demand the land bank on behalf of its citizens to bring back, where you can come with $500 and a driver's license, like I did in 2004, and say, here's $500 and here's proof that I live in Flint. I found the house on 1313 Mockingbird Lane, and I looked at the condition of it. Let me get that up off you. Y'all own it. I'm gonna put it together. I'm gonna work it. And they wrote me a little $8,000 land contract where I was paying $300 a month. So here I am in Flint renting at $600 a month. I can afford $300 a month, and I have a couple grand that can help jumpstart and fixing this house up. Doing moves like that empower people. If you can empower, don't you know it's evidence-based information out there that say if people own their home, the esteem in the household is higher than if they rent. People feel better about it. Think of even crime. So if all three of us was on the street with 5 houses and everybody renting, now all of a sudden the majority of us are owners on the house. We know Pookie Ray Ray and them, and we'll call Nook, and you're not going to come on the street with home invasion because we own the house. It ain't the man's house no more.
Right.
We own it. We not going to let you come on the street with all of that. So just making homeowners, it increases the tax base. It helps the esteem of the family. That's stuff that we can encourage Liddell, and we can encourage Mayor Neely, who I believe all of them will see. People listen based on the force and power of being. You have to bring force and power to create movement. And sometimes that's just physical presence. And sometimes that's continued letters. And then you support your council and mayor until you have a reason not to. You don't just not like the officials that come in. When people run, I'm a full disclosure. When people run for office, normally what I do as an independent is I contribute something to both. I might like this person more than this person. I'm gonna break off some of them a little something. And then when they come in, I'm not gonna be so focused on what they did. Or I'm gonna say, is there anything I can do? Is there any suggestion I can give? I don't need no credit or none of that. Just, and then now if you don't respond to nothing, if you don't respond back, because normally when people go into something, they already got a focus on an agenda. So tell me what that is, so I know where I can fit in on it. I might not like 4 things you saying, but like 2. I'm gonna focus on them 2 I like, and help you with that. So it's important that the Liddells and the Neelys communicate with us what they're trying to do, so that we can help, even if it's a suggestion to do it better. So we You know, and that's on us as we the people, you know, to help on that little portion. So this is some really good stuff, man. Y'all can have, and I really appreciate Fli-City Blackout, because boy, y'all be getting straight to it. It'd be controversial, but it's needed. Come on, hit me, bro. I know you got some more.
Dig right back in, right? So we discussed, you know, KWA pipeline, right? One of the questions, I know one of the big things that, you know, was out in the community is, of course, you know, talking about the bone marrow lead testing, right? I know that was a big conversation. I know that was something that I'm pretty sure you heard a couple times, and you know,
knee deep in it.
People want to get some insight on it. So I know that, you know, when we talk about testing, when you're talking about kind of getting some understanding of what type of levels that you have in your body, and there was no tool to begin with when they first started out, right?
That's right.
It was nothing to gauge, you know, where your levels of lead was. A lot of folks didn't have documents from the hospital, none of that stuff, right? So through the organization, Napoli Skolic and Flint Restoration.
No, just Napoli. So you have a ton of law firms that descended up on Flint, and brought clients in to try and get them compensation for the lawsuit. All these are under the burden of proof.
Okay.
So one of the early forms of proving that you had lead in your system is to go get a blood lead test.
Exactly.
Many people in 214, 215 got blood lead tests. The court not even accepting blood lead tests after is either July or October of 216. They're not accepting them. Why? Because when we came up off of contaminated water in October of 215, then blood lead, I'm taught by the experts, starts to go from your blood
to your bones
after 30 days into your bones and organs. So imagine trying to get a blood lead test in late 216, 217, 218. You might not have signed up for the water lawsuit to 217, 218, 219. And your law firm telling you go get a blood lead test is ineffective. Right. It's not going to be accepted by the court because the science say the lead, it might be some trace lead in your body, but for the most part, if it's lead from the water contamination, because you can get lead from many sources, then it's probably not going to be in the blood anymore. It's going to be in the bones and the organs.
Right.
And so what the law firm did, which is a private business, that's designed to put on proof. It said, how can we put on proof? So it worked with a doctor who is one of 4 of the #1 specialists in lead analysis with XRF devices, portable X-ray devices in the country, and had been engaged in it for years. So a lot of the confusion that lawyers don't play out in the streets, they play out in the court is this thing only limited to y'all customers? Yeah, we was trying to get lead analysis for our customers. The other law firms had the opportunity to do the same thing, and in some cases did it. But this particular device was used, and it was used for a period of time.
Right. And
people were, and anybody that came back 5 parts per million per billion or higher as an adult would qualify for a category to get paid, and some kids as low as 0.9% would qualify to be paid.
Right.
And so then, out of pressure and questioning by other lawyers who wanted to get in on it, they started contacting the manufacturer, and the manufacturer got a little nervous, and the judge ended up saying in court, the manufacturer put out a letter saying that the bone lead device that they sell, it was not even used for humans, that they did that to try and get liability off their back, because they knew that the bone lead device that was used was not that one. Dr. Spate, where's Exhibit B at? See, you can go online to the court's website and you can download this exhibit from Dr. Michael Druce, who basically is a biomedical engineer and a specialist on regulatory science and medicine of devices. if a device need to be registered with the FDA or any of that stuff. And his conclusion in his affidavit was the XRF that was used on people was not the same XRF that manufacturer sold, but it was a modified XIF that had been used hundreds and hundreds of times before on people to simply quantify if they had lead in their body. That was the only purpose of it. It was never designed for medical analysis or for study or for research. It was simply designed, and it was done down on your shin bone, where no dosimetry spatter, dosimetry being radiation spatter, was so negligible. You didn't need no lead vest. You didn't need any of that. It wasn't done by any of your organs or any of that, but it was designed to quantify that lead that went out of your blood and into your bones. It found it, and some people were still low, but a lot of people, it was there. And he said it was not the same device. It was a modified device that didn't require regulation by the FDA. It didn't even require registration with the state of Michigan. And under Michigan law on X-ray devices, if it don't affect the environment and it's safe for the person, there's a clause that say don't even have to be registered.
But you got to get a better propaganda team.
Well, no, this was fought in court. Where it was supposed to be fought at. It wasn't designed to be fought in the streets, because lawyers operate under court rules. They can't just because somebody out in the community holler, they can't come out there and be hollering with them. They got to make their fight in court. But I understand what you're saying about marketing. So one of the questions was the people who did the scans, will it still be counted? And according to the courts, yes, because the information was put out there. Even Dr. Spake himself had an affidavit. You can go online, Eastern District of Michigan, you can pull these. This is public information. So I'm not putting out anything that's new. He said in page 1, or after he was given his credentials, he was saying, to be clear, the issues outlined, remember Dr. Reynolds charged it. He's answering that objection by Dr. Reynolds attacking the use of the XRF for the purpose of establishing bone lead exposure is absolutely false. My research and that of others prove this point. Examples of my work are outlined in my curriculum, but by type, and he gives cases after cases and studies after studies where this thing was used. All this, any of y'all can go online and get on humans.
Right.
And he said the portable XIF device in its current state is validated for use in studies to determine the level of lead exposure. But here it is solely being utilized as a method to qualify individual exposure levels. Mm-hmm. I work directly with the device inventor, not the manufacturer. I work directly with the device inventor in order to customize the device calibration specifically for these measurements as part of our validation work. The commercial device by itself, as the manufacturer said, should not be used for these measurements. But with proper supervision and calibration, the device can be used for bone lead measurements in humans and has been approved for such use by several IRBs. And so he goes on to give all of the sources, all of the information, and what the judge ultimately ruled was the device was valid. The state of Michigan issued a license after the fact for it to be used, and other independent experts came in and tested the machine in the environment and did dosimetry tests, which study if radiation spatter and all of that stuff came back that it was so negligible, it would be equivalent to walking around outside for 9 hours, which we do every day, get normal cosmic radiation. So it's a safe device.
Who was the study? Who was that guy?
The second one, Dr. Aaron Speck. Affidavit by Dr. Aaron Speck, PhD. I'm leading this with you because this is public information.
I want them to go ahead and research this. You know what I mean? So,
well, that's what you should be able to do. This is an exhibit off the current court case as to why this stuff that could be used. It blows all the arguments out the water. And what I found to be interesting is the brother that was complaining about it did not present at his hearing one expert. And the firm went out and got 5 independent experts that was at the top of the game that said this machine did not have to be registered with the FBA. It's not the same machine that the manufacturer is talking about that's used to measure inanimate objects in junkyards. And it's not that same machine. It's a modified machine with the inventor, the one who made it, that was used on humans in hundreds of studies before Flint. So Flint people were not guinea pig. And here's the thing: if I'm a lawyer and I want my clients to get some guap off this lead suit, and they doctors, they don't have no blood lead test. In fact, they filed as naked. It don't have nothing. If I have to spend $400 or $500 for them to get 10, 20, 30, or their kids to get more, then that's what I'm going to do, as long as it's not harmful and as long as it's tried and tested. And my only sole purpose to do it is to quantify proof so that it get paid. And what the judge ended up saying, I'm not going to punish a law firm because they did better than other law firms. These are private companies. These are not charitable organizations, but at the request of the locals, people like me, I begged the law firm, hey, open up on Sundays. I'll work on Sundays. Me and my team work on Sundays for 4 months to allow other law firms and people that didn't have no lawyers to come in and get bone lead tested. And we bone lead tested people from all of the other almost every other law firm had the most complaining. They had people come in and get bone lead tested. And we did it for 4 months, as long as we was open 7 days a week. This stuff, we ain't out in the streets advertising and arguing. We just trying to do our portion and get our work in. And plus, by me being low man on the totem, I'm not coming here representing Napoli. I'm Legal Research One. I'm a contractor of this group. So I'm speaking in my capacity as a contractor about information that's public and available. Yeah. So we just need to do a little research.
That'd be the thing. A lot of times people did kind of throw that device on the bus, man. They were saying it was like you said,
it was getting beat down, man, and it was very hard to keep.
Yeah, I was, and it just,
but it wasn't the same device.
So that's something that when we talk about communication, that wasn't a specific device used on humans.
So why am I saying this now and I didn't say it then? Because I wasn't the law firm was being attacked. It had to represent itself, and you got to understand, when you're hired by a law firm, the law firm can't just come telling the business of the client. That's called attorney-client privilege. So a law firm can't just come and do like a regular person and just be all out in the streets and in the media arguing back and forth with you. They got to take their argument in the courtroom, which is what they did, and they won.
Right.
And they showed the legitimate concerns to be true. I don't see it as an illegitimate concern to ask if whether or not this thing is safe or
where is Dr. Reynolds at now? Because he was mainly he was down and he was attacking that tool. The brother even called me about like, I guess he must, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, man, is you getting paid for this?
well, here's part of the question. Here's part of the question.
I'll never get paid for nothing. I don't want you to know. I don't get paid for nothing.
That brother didn't just attack the machine. He attacked it. He attacked your regular blood lead test that showed you had lead in your system. He said, well, how do we know where that, according to what I've seen, how do we know where that came from? I'm like, dang, you don't want nobody to get paid?
Yeah.
we saying we don't care where it came from. For the purpose of the settlement, it came from the Flint River and people was contaminated. Now it is true that the defendants just lay down and agreed to a settlement. They was fighting back. They sent experts to people's houses. People's houses got scraped to see if whether or not it had lead in it, and people had lead in their paint and their window seals. So the defendant had to ask. Their lawyer would have been irresponsible. How do you know that these people didn't get infected by the lead on the wall or on the windowsill versus the lead in the water? And our position was, what are you saying? They licking the walls? They licking the windowsills? Or is it more likely than not that they drinking this contaminated water? So a settlement was reached. And in the settlement, the question wasn't asked, where did the lead come from? It's just said, if you got lead in your system and can prove it, you can get some loot. And this gentleman, I don't know him to speak bad or good. Maybe his intentions was solely good. He said, well, hey, wait a minute. How do you know that lead is lead out of the water? We said, what? We got an agreement that if they show lead, they get money. What is you talking about? Right. Now, if you tell me this device is unsafe and it harms somebody, that's a different argument. I'm gonna be one of the first persons right there with you saying, oh yeah, this a problem. So but no one's showed that.
So what type
Not one.
Because that was one of the conversations, right? They said it was a harmful device. What he was saying.
Right.
If so, or if real, like how can you clarify the levels of rays that one will receive from utilizing this device?
Well, it's in the paperwork. I mean, the level one, I can tell you what one sister said who was a former radiologist for Hurley. She was the director of radiology, and she basically said you would get more radiation doing the x-ray on your finger than you would get from this machine. She said the dose is so low that is barely measurable. And where you doing it at is very safe, down on the shin bone. You ain't doing it up by no organs. And you know, so these ain't my words. I'm just quoting the experts that was hired because I'm not qualified to say. And I ain't no doctor. I'm not a radiologist. That's not my wheelhouse. So I had to rely on the information of the experts to be comfortable asking people to come in and get the test. Right. I had to be comfortable with that. So I've seen this stuff, but I wasn't the spokesman for the firm. I'm just speaking on stuff that's in the public domain. And it's like, you know, people are counting on these lawyers to come in and get them some financial relief. A lot of evidence just don't exist. In addition to lead, if you had hair loss, if you had skin rashes, if you had high blood pressure, if you had renal insufficiency, if you had stomach gastrointestinal issues, if you had neuropathy, if you had lung pneumonia, if you was a female and had a miscarriage, if you had Legionellas, all of those conditions, the science have said could have been made worse, which they use the term called exacerbated, or could have been affected by contaminated water. However, you still got to put on proof. They ain't gonna go off your word. You got to go to your doctor and get issued some skin cream and stuff. And then your doctor have to provide what is called a link letter to say more likely than not fully yes, but more likely than not, your neuropathy, your high blood pressure, your miscarriage, your stroke, your renal insufficiency, or your gastrointestinal issues, your stomach issues, your hair loss, your skin rashes was affected. Your lung pneumonia was more likely than not contributed by 2014, 2016, the contamination period by that water. Now, some of your doctors aren't doing anything. And if you got a relationship with your doctor, I encourage you that if you signed up to go to your doctor, and basically get a link letter and bring it to your lawyer, whoever it is, so that it can be used as proof to get you some compensation, because that's what you got to do in this late hour.
That's what I'm hearing too. It's like, instead of finding ways to prevent folks from getting access to more dollars and getting more support, how about we find better ways of making sure that they be made whole? I just never understood why would we attack something that's, you know, maybe beneficial and that can help us, and it's not harming us, right? That was the key.
That's correct.
And so if we can do anything to make sure that Flint residents feel any source of relief, then that's what we're doing. We're not waiting on nobody. We're not trying to, you know, take these settlement amounts with, you know, at the basic level. We do have to have proof, and we do have to fall in the category. So yeah, we just, you know, I would say, you know, y'all was quick on your feet to provide a device to make sure y'all can at least go ahead and get some levels out of this. And, you know, well,
it wasn't the first time.
You know what I'm saying?
This stuff has been done before. And even some of the complaining lawyers, if you looked at the hearing, admitted that they used these type of devices before. In litigation. So it's don't always now it's totally legitimate, and I've never once out of my mouth disparaged or see, because if you can't stand the heat, you got to get out the kitchen. If you can't stand somebody criticizing you for what you're trying to do, you better get on out the way, and you better hold up to the criticism, because the court ruled it still can be used. So guess what? Thousands of children and thousands of adults who otherwise had no proof whatsoever is going to get compensation because of these tests. Now, who mad at that? If they not physically harmed or hurt, who in the heck is mad that the XRF bone scan is going to allow hundreds and hundreds of people to get compensation where they ain't have no other proof? Man, come on. And one brother had asked, so what the firm did for the people who had tests completed, they gave out letters to their clients with that information. It's private attorney-client information, so they're not going to advertise to the public the results. They got to do that between their clients, and some tests are still being calculated. That's why everybody don't have it. And they definitely scrutinizing it a lot harder based on all of the scrutiny they got. So they have to put that together right. And it's information that's designed to get you compensation, not to pass out for your medical. So those are some of the truths and limitations.
That's deep, man. I'm glad we just having this conversation, shed light, give some insight, man, for folks who really want to know. I think, that was a real burning question. That was an issue that I know some folks, and we not even taking shots at the brother Reynolds, man.
No, I don't know him to take shots at him. My understanding is he's a noble person, and he's proficient. So I'm not here to question him or question his motives.
I rock with the family, Quasi. Big shout out to Quasi.
Yeah, I'm not here to knock that brother. I don't know him to knock him.
But he did call me on that, man. I said, what did you talk about, man? Yeah, I don't need to pay for nothing. You hear me? Yeah. So it was a real thing. Well, I had to clarify, like, bro, man, listen, man, I don't do nothing just to be doing something.
Right.
And I ain't just, I ain't supporting no nonsense.
That's correct.
So, you know what I'm saying?
And that's why I felt it was based on our relationship and the fact that I'm working independently with this group. I said, let me just pull off this public information and share that. Ain't nobody, I wasn't empowered to say none of this on behalf. The firm didn't tell me to come out and say this. In fact, the firm would tell me, the opposite. So this is just something that was public information that I shared from my little vantage point and perspective. I'm not an attorney, so I'm not giving nobody no advice. I'm just telling you, research. Check it out for yourself. Don't take nobody's word for it.
So as we come down to the shoot, because our thing is now we in this place now where the settlements is being distributed or about to be distributed. What can people do to make sure they receive some of that compensation from the current $626 million settlement? So what can people do to make sure that they are compensated?
So if you are signed up with a law firm, then if you have a relationship with your doctor, I would go see my doctor. And if you have any of those conditions that we talked about, you yourself, based on your relationship with your doctor, try and obtain a link letter. Have your doctor write on his letterhead or her letterhead that your high blood pressure, your skin rashes, your hair loss, your neuropathy, your stomach issues, your renal issues, your stroke, your lung pneumonia, that your Legionnaires was more likely than not affected by water contamination between 2014 and 2016, because that's what it's going to take. It's not going to be your word or my word. It's going to be independent, corroborated proof, which would be your doctors. And I know some of us didn't go to the doctor.
That's what I was about to say.
And that's a problem because, how do you go backwards when you don't have that information? Somebody got to not lie to you. Somebody got to tell you the hard truth that that is no proof. That's one of the reasons why I was happy that the firm had came up with a safe way to try and find if you had something, been affected some kind of way with the XRF, because that thing could go back about 15 years, according to my understanding of what I read, to see what lead you had in your system. Was it perfect? No, because it wasn't a medical device. But the settlement said, show us proof that you was affected. And this device, like the blood lead test, like the neuro test that children are taking, the Neural Development Center is conducting tests on the kids 18 and 5 to 18.
Legionella, you mentioned Legionella. How is that affecting? Because we did have a case where, like, I want to say, like 11 folks may have passed from Legionella. Just real quick, what is the breakdown with Legionella, and how has that affected residents who have been exposed to Legionella?
Okay, so what do you?
So meaning that, folks have been, the residents have been exposed to Legionella.
Yeah.
Right. Is that a problem for us? Right. Since we haven't did any medical, I guess,
studying and stuff,
studying how it affects the body. Is that a problem for us?
I'll be frank and honest with you, man. This is why you have to go to your doctor. Some questions are,
folks ain't going to the doctor, dog.
I know, but from my understanding, a lot of people who was diagnosed with pneumonia could have been Legionella because they have similar symptoms, but it's worse. I don't know if the bacteria is higher. So one of the things I've learned a long time ago, Dewan, I don't mind telling you I don't know, because what I do when people ask me that from the position I see, say, what did your doctor say? Go to your doctor, because I'm not one. I'm not going to pump fake like I'm one. I ain't going to sit here and do that, because that would be a disservice. So I believe that, I believe that there was more Legionella cases than just based on what I've seen empirically with my eyes and heard? Absolutely. Do I believe some people who had caught pneumonia during that time probably had some form of Legionella? Absolutely. And one of the defendants, McLaren Hospital, was allowed to reduce its contribution from $20 million down to $5 million. And it took $15 million out because when people be talking about opting out, hey, one of the attorneys, Jeffrey Feiger, said, I ain't part of that. I ain't part of this lawsuit. My clients ain't opt in. He had almost all Legionnaire clients, from what I understand. They didn't opt into the lawsuit, but they sued McLaren. So McLaren begged the court and
so they can pay out.
The plaintiffs and the defendants agreed to allow McLaren Hospital, including the city of Flint, to reduce its contribution by $15 million so it can deal with that lawsuit. So that addresses the question that a lot of people are asking about opting out. You can opt out and get your own lawyer and do your thing. That's what he did. So come on now, it's options, and people are free to, do different things. I would never tell a person to be limited. Don't opt into nothing you don't want to opt into. Go get you an independent lawyer and fight. If it's easy work, if all you got to do is grab a stack of papers and just throw them on there because the work is done. I mean, the bases are, but you still got to fight, and one more so than that, you have to put on proof. And a person asked me, Dewan, in answer to your question, why do we have to prove anything? We from Flint. Why can't we just get any money? Now, if a lawsuit worked like that, how many lawsuits would there be? There would be endless lawsuits. That you have to put on proof.
Is there any space where there's a special way where we can add that in? So seeing the fact that those records may not be available, is there any way that we could have made a special addendum into this settlement for the fact that if you stayed in Flint during this period of time frame, that you've been affected by water crisis because you live directly in the city of Flint? Is it a way, without showing like proof of records, is it a way that we can do that? I'm just asking a question.
I don't see how that would rise to the level of evidence.
Okay.
But that was asked.
Right.
I know that was asked, but it's like, law is emotional. It's proof has to be either corroborated. It has to be corroborated. And I'll give you an example of that in a second. Y'all just excuse me 1 second. Just 1 second. Okay. Excuse me. Let's cover both, brother.
Okay. So yeah, man. Mickey, what's your take? What you feeling?
Messed up. I don't agree with none of it. I don't even agree with the council people, like what they're saying.
Right. I hope that we all just listening to what's being said and during this conversation. And like, I hope we all are going to the doctor. We are practicing healthy living. We are eating things that's going to be beneficial for our bodies. And, we are just kind of, doing all the cleanliness things that we need to do, right? Just keeping yourself safe. Because this is some information that makes you react. So when you talk about Legionella is a case that we have lost Flint residents due to that situation. So I'm not sure who's all checking in about Legionella. I'm not sure who's all checking in with with the doctor on the regular. But I definitely, just based off this information that's being said, that we want to be very conscious of that, right? I think when the brother was here last time, he was talking about how the parasites in Legionella, goes through your veins, go up to your brain, and just kind of eats away at your brain and those type of things. So just kind of gathering all this information in. I hope folks are really kind of taking hold to what's being discussed. We've been played. We've been played like dominoes, and I hope that we can find a way to stop these type of activities from taking place. And have the right leadership that's going to represent for the body. So we got brother Reggie back.
Good.
Okay. So man, we just want to dive in. We got a few more questions, and
Come on with it.
So for the homeowners, right? Because a lot of times it was an economic impact, and a lot of people, especially homeowners, right? They had a lot of questions.
Mm-hmm.
So what can a person do who signed up to make sure that they can get a property claim?
Okay.
Say, for instance, if a person lived at an address in 2014, then there was another person in 2015, then another person in 2016. How would a property claim be rendered for folks in that way, right? And you clarified it, for folks who, if you were living at a place in 2014 in Flint, and then somebody else lived in that place in 2015,
okay,
and then another person staying in that place in 2016, are they all eligible for a property claim?
All right. Now that's a very good question.
Okay.
And according to what I've read,
Mm-hmm.
and according to what I've been told by the lawyers,
Mm-hmm.
if you lived in Flint for at least 30 days
Mm-hmm.
during the contamination period,
Mm-hmm.
214 and 216, you can make a personal injury claim and you can make a property claim. And so when we say a property claim, we're talking about a person who owned the house. Now, if I own the house 3737 Mockingbird Lane
Mm-hmm.
in 214, and you owned it in 215, and the brother owned it in 216, that one house was occupied 3 separate times, and contaminated water flowed through it throughout that whole period.
Mm-hmm.
So each of us are able to make a separate claim at that same address because we lived at it 3 separate times while it was receiving contamination. So
Right.
I'm not going to have to share my little property claim
Right.
with yours
Right.
because I lived in it and owned at a different time than you lived in it. You lived, so you get property claims a couple ways. One, either you own the house.
Mm-hmm.
So if we owned it 1 year apiece during the contamination period, that's 3 separate claims. It's not just one claim off that address. Now, the other way you get a property claim is if you rented a house and paid the water bill. And paid the water bill.
But
now,
not renters. Now that's a homeowner, but not renters.
Renters can make a property claim. Listen to me very carefully now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the judge had Archer Group sending this paperwork out.
Okay.
To everybody, even if you had an attorney, them big white envelopes everybody was getting, this information was in there. If you were renting a house and paying the water bill, you can file a property claim, but it's a little more complex. If I was renting a house from Brother DeWine and I was paying the water bill, I'm gonna make a property claim, even though he the owner of the house. Now, because he is the owner of the house, the property claim, this where that the part comes in. I don't have to agree with everything. I don't have to personally. I personally didn't like this. It's gonna ask, do I 100% own the house? No, I don't own the house at all. Right. He owned the house. Right. Who is the property owner? I gotta list their name too. Okay, yeah. So now me and the homeowner can potentially make a claim. But if I make the claim and he never make a claim because he know doggone well he wasn't paying that water and he ain't get affected by the water at that spot, although he might say my property was affected because I own it and my pipes is messed up, now I might have to split the claim with him. And fundamentally, law don't get emotional. It'll say that's fair. He owned the house, but he was paying the water bill. They got to split the claim. And yes, everybody else that was in that house consuming it ain't getting nothing off that property claim. Them two gonna get it. The person that was paying the bill and the person that owned it, if you rent. But the person who owned it would have to make that claim too. If they don't, then you gonna get it, even though they said they own it. And a lot of landlords ain't tripping. They'll do that. But everybody else in the house, if they was affected, they would apply for a personal injury claim. They would go and get, and the person making the property claim can also make a personal injury claim. But there's going to be some people that didn't qualify for no personal injuries, but qualified for that property claim. And the same thing with business owners. Business owners can get $1,000 to $5,000, but they have to show, their business paperwork, and they're gonna have to present the easiest things that the lawyers are asking for is you to present your tax return to potentially show your loss. Okay. And you make your claim that way.
Okay, I got it real quick. So one of the big fallouts from the settlement,
yes,
is that Michigan law, which the attorneys get 33 1/3.
Yes,
right. And and attorneys, by no means I am not stepping on nobody's toes. That's never how I do. I always want everybody to eat. You know what I'm saying? No matter how you get your money, if it's on the up and up, man, you ain't taking and stealing and thieving and all that stuff from people, man, it's a good deal. So the attorneys will get 33 1/3. But in Michigan, the law, attorneys get 33 1/3 of settlement for the
yes.
So where I guess with the low amount of settlement that we got, and with our attorneys going to be receiving that, what other options do we have? Can they give a percentage back? Can they drop it down? Can they donate towards the total settlement amount? What other options do we have, or if any? You said.
Now that's a very good question. So when most people signed up with whatever lawyer they signed up with, they signed what is called a retainer.
Okay.
And on that retainer, on most retainers on page 1, it'll say this is what is called a contingent lawsuit, meaning I'm not going to get paid unless you get paid. But I'm signing for 33 1/3 plus costs. Mm-hmm. Contingent lawsuits are normally 33 1/3 plus costs. In some states, they 40%, like in Colorado and things like that. So what happens is, it's going to have other things in there too. It's going to say we can team up with other lawyers. It's going to say we can borrow money to finance this lawsuit. This lawsuit is going on 7 years, mm-hmm. and not one attorney have received a dime off that settlement money. They've been fronting the case for 7 years out their pockets. Interrogatories, depositions, experts, meeting with the lawyers. This wasn't just no push-up. To get to the settlement, you had to go through these motions. You had to put on your proofs. Mm-hmm. And the lead attorneys, the lead attorneys that were doing it, that the court said the 40 million is going to go to, mm-hmm. that money ain't blind money. That's still, from my understanding, part of the 33 1/3 is just the other lawyers who didn't do all of that work, but brought their clients to the table, packaged them up, and put them in to qualify. They're going to have to pay into a special benefit fund out of their 33 and a third, that 40 million that those lawyers are going to get. That's going to come out of the other lawyers' 33 and a third. They're going to have to kick about 6% of their 33. So they're hollering louder than y'all. They're in court, but the court made a determination that the lead attorneys, for their leadership and the work that they did, the additional work of the motion practice, dealing with the defendants' objections, the interrogatories, the depositions. You know, I even helped drive people down to Butzel and Long and some of these to make sure they got there, and they was deposed by the defendants. So all of this stuff is legalese, it's litigation, it's motion practice, and those lead attorneys are getting paid out of that. So the judge, though, did reduce that 33 and a third by
They said 25%.
Well, 25% for the firms that were ride-along firms,
Okay.
that wasn't the lead firms.
So
And
they get 25%.
And once the settlement happened, any clients that signed up after that, I believe all of the law firms only are getting like 10 or 15% because the lawsuit was already settled.
Mhm.
So a influx of people came at that point. So their percentages is going to be even less than that, according to the court, because it was already done. Normally lawsuits are ended at that point.
Okay.
But this judge continued it for more people to sign up.
Mhm.
There are so many nuances to this case that I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about some of these nuances from a layman perspective,
Mhm.
without the limitations of a lawyer, because I ain't giving nobody no legal advice. I'm just sharing information, and good, bad, or indifferent. I would pray that you don't crucify the messenger, because I've been doing low man on the totem pole work. I've been dealing directly with people coming in with their paperwork, processing their paperwork, and getting it where it need to be. That's been my role, and to house the facility to allow people to come to 6 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week. I've been out to churches and houses, but the question about lawyers, that's a systemic problem, meaning that's the system of law.
Right.
And unless that system, and until it is changed, that's how contingent lawsuits are going to work. If we get into a car accident right now and you go to any lawyer in Flint that take your case, they're going to charge you 33 and a third plus costs. They're going to charge you the money they paid for filing fees. They're going to charge you the money they paid to draft up the this money they're going to charge you ain't going to have nothing to do with the 33 and the third. This going to be the plus. So they might end up with 40-50% of your loot before it's over with. Now, some lawyers will just take the 33 and the third. They ain't even going to trip. But that's their choice. But I bet you their retainer ain't going to say that. The retainer going to say 33 and a third. That's not new to this lawsuit. That's how contingent lawsuits work. Some lawsuits you pay it up front, you get what you get, but that's how they work, according to my understanding.
Okay, last question.
Come on with it.
When will people get this money? I'm just saying, man. They said the claims is opened up, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So from January the 12th through May the 12th, the court is requiring the law firms to complete what is called a settlement claims package. Some people without lawyers who just signed up directly with Archer, y'all got to complete the settlement claim package. Different law firms are doing their process a little differently, but this is the time. If you've been missing in action and you ain't participated with your law firm and provided the information that can help them find out if you're going to get something or not, now is the time. It is fourth quarter. 2-minute warning. The game is about to end, and you got to turn this information in. Now, I'm going to tell y'all something about the kids. All of y'all that signed up, they got kids. Kids is the only category that will get something almost with no proof. And that was designed by the lawyers who put the suit together early on. So say I'm a kid, and all I say is I'm in Flint. I live in Flint on 3737 between this period of time, and here's the proof that I live there. It is my understanding on the categories 1 through 7, and for the kids, there's a category that just say exposure. So it seemed like there's categories for the kids 1 to 6, 7 to 11, and 12 to 17 is a category for the kids to get something just if you can prove they were exposed. The question you asked about for the adults. But since the science say they're going to be affected more, the adults got played somewhat like stepchildren. And it's unfortunate because Flint is 68% adults, according to my understanding.
Right.
So please, if you have children, turn in the proof of their identification, turn in proof of their residency, school records. And I'm talking about from 14 to 16. From 14 to 16, show where they went to school at, show where they lived at in Flint. Because some kids didn't live in Flint, but they went to school in Flint. They worshiped in Flint. They stayed over at grandmama's house 30 days throughout the summer. Show that proof. And if they signed up, because you can't sign up right now if you haven't, and let them get some compensation. Yeah. It's not a be all do all. Yeah. I believe, depending on how that was my opinion. I was going to say, I wouldn't be surprised if folks look up if these doctors don't do what they're supposed to do and who got insurance policies, because you can sue when something comes to your knowledge, and they may be next. I hope so. Because I think and this is my personal humble opinion, I think it's borderline malpractice for a doctor who had clients come to them between 14 to 16 to not seek to confirm that any of their qualifying conditions could have been related to the water crisis. I'm not saying just do a blank letter, because that's your profession. And I'm not telling nobody to do anything wrong. No, I'm just saying, look at the evidence. The science support that. So if I have skin rashes and I ain't had them before the water crisis, or if my blood pressure started doing like this and it wasn't doing that before the water crisis, then more likely than not, is it possible that I got contaminated by the water? Write the doggone link letter and give it to your client so they can get into a paid category.
Right. No, I definitely. And just real quick, what would be? Do you know any amounts? Say, for instance, like average amount since children or adults? Is there any? Do you have any numbers that you may kind of like think we can hypothetically, what folks might be looking like?
No. I ain't gonna do that, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because once we're going through the process now, that once the people get into the categories, then if it's 2,000 people in category 6 or 3,000 people in category 2, then you're gonna be able to take the formula and you're gonna say, based on what the court have from all of the attorneys, this how many people in these categories, and now you're going to be able to get somewhat of an accurate number on what people are going to get. Let that process happen. Don't go off of nobody's speculation. That would be irresponsible to kind of speculate at this point, and I ain't gonna do it.
Nah, you know what?
I want to, but I'm not, because I know doggone well Reggie said, which I don't fear, that, but it would be irresponsible for me to do that, and I'm not going to do it. I don't have the wherewithal to make that call, so I'm not going to make it, because I'm low man on the totem pole.
No, don't even worry about it, man. You done brilliant, and we appreciate
all brother, God be the glory.
Dropped in,
my brother, man. I really appreciate the body of work that Fli-City Blackout is doing, and Flint has been injured so much, of course, by so many people. Yes, I heard one of the activists say, we let people come in and just become millionaires off of us, and it's a sad truth. But we have to stand up and address every aspect of what came in, and to help. I mean, everybody's doing their wheelhouses. I kind of was hard on the nonprofit industrial complex, but I had that same frustration that people have with the lawyers, because I'm like, this money that needed, it wasn't going to be as regulated. But that don't take away from the fact that they do a lot of good work. And Flint is one of the cities that have a lot of grant giving, and that. Yeah. And so but self-funding to me is better. That's another conversation. But I just want y'all to know I really appreciate the opportunity from my little vantage point as a contract paraprofessional to share with you the urgency of the hour. I know there's a lot of dissatisfaction with the amount and things like that. But if you have signed up, don't be one of those persons that say, oh man, I could have turned this in and got some money and didn't get it, turn it in.
Turn it
Especially for your children. Turn it in.
in. Turn it in for the children.
And let's see if we can continue to do better. Flint always be changing stuff. Unfortunately, we be like a lamb, a sacrificial lamb, but we ain't the only ones being poisoned. We should have some empathy. Over in Benton Harbor, man, they've been on water lead for over a year and a half longer than Flint. And they water plant is the problem. So they didn't even have the chance to switch back over. And they over there silent as the lamb, man. They just over there suffering for change. And so hopefully, they'll get some resources.
Big love to
Reverend
our folks in
Pickney
Benton Harbor,
Reverend Burton.
Yeah.
And,
You definitely are in our hearts, man.
Councilman Singleton and
definitely
just good people, man. Yeah.
It's unfortunate, man, but man, I really appreciate everything that's been discussed today. It was a lot of insight, a lot of information shared. I know our guests, and I know our participants who watched the show, they had mountains of questions and different things and throwing different.
I'm gonna have to go back and look at the comments.
Yeah, man, and definitely if you can, want to drop some notes in there, give some insight or whatever, they greatly appreciate it, man. But I really think this was a very, very classic conversation about an existing issue with the water crisis.
Yeah.
But we stayed strong and we stayed thorough, and we're gonna always get through it because that's just how we are, man.
Yeah, Flint cut from a different cloth, man. Flint cut from a different cloth.
I just really hope that, man, we never allow this to take place again.
You're right.
You learn something from this. Learn how this all played out. We went through different channels, right? Different conversational points, man. So let's allow ourselves to learn, right? Protect, our people, our residents, our constituents, and then also, man, make sure we got the right leadership in place, man. That's gonna take us to new heights. And I'm ready for Flint to be change the narrative to something great. I believe that's gonna take place.
Yeah, I'm very hopeful. Even I've just come to a stage in my life where I'm optimistic. I try and see because it's so easy to see the bad in the person.
All the time.
And he who is without sin, throw the first rock.
All the time.
So I try and look for whoever's there to try and be as supportive as possible without being completely duped or played or punked. And that's where you have to also turn inward.
Yes.
And I try and turn inward and say, okay, charity starts at home, then it's spread abroad. What can I do to make my lot better and my family's lot better than my community? Because if you ain't rolling like that, you probably rolling a little imbalance. Charity starts at home as a principle, and then it spreads abroad. But let's stand on what we have in common. I mean, I'm a flawed individual, but I embrace my flaws. And today I'm trying to make the distance between what I say and what I do one and the same. I'm living to try and close the gap. And if we can all operate like that today, that may not have been the case yesterday.
And that's cool. That's cool. If it wasn't yesterday,
it would, but
today.
But today, cool. I'm trying to make the distance between what I say and what I do one and the same.
Yes, sir.
So I really appreciate.
Yes, sir, man.
Y'all consistent, man. Y'all ask some hard stuff. A person better come with it. But again, you're dealing with human beings who are flawed people. So stand up, get up, and do something. And don't wait and rely strictly on a lawsuit for your change. Get up and stand up and do something for yourself.
Come on.
Let's put our little nickels together and make some stuff happen, and quit waiting for gimme. Gimme them ran down the street. You ain't gonna never catch him.
Right.
So you might as well stand up and do something for yourself and your people and your kind. I don't care what I did yesterday, today, that's my philosophy. That's how I'm trying to roll. And I don't want to just be a sayer, a doer. Sister Liddell doing this again in a few days. Over at the neighborhood spot. We're going to be talking about this because those of you who have opted in and have signed up, you have a responsibility to help provide the information needed for you to get some relief. And go meet with your lawyers, call them, text them, fax them, and say, what do I need to do that I have not done to qualify? Sign up don't mean qualify. So you got to make sure you qualify to get something, because everybody that signed up is not going to get something.
So be ready for that.
In terms of adults,
right?
And the kids, say your son or say you qualify, but you ain't turning your documents that you have to turn in, your identification, your proof of residency, the birth certificates for the kids. If you haven't turned this stuff in, even if they qualify, ain't nobody finna hold that money in no pot. A deficiency letter gonna come out from the court after May the 12th, giving you a period of time to correct that deficiency. And if you don't, your money gonna be grabbed, shuffled up, put back in the deck, and whoever ready gonna get it.
Well, man, listen, y'all definitely get your ducks in a row. If you signed it, you opted in, make sure you follow through. And then definitely, man, we'll bring back another conversation too, because we're doing a lot with economics and look at the socioeconomics component and what we can do as members in this community to grow our wealth.
Yes,
right? That's something that I know a lot of folks will be definitely interested in. So we'll definitely be bringing Brother Reggie back for additional conversation and talking about what's next for the city of Flint. And then if we have any updates, as you know, especially when it comes down, months to come about the water crisis, the settlement, when those things get to rolling, definitely want to have you come back and kind of help guide those conversations. But I hope you took some from the information that was spread today. Be sure to tap in Brother Reggie, connect with him. Reggie Davison on Facebook. Give him a shout. His office on Flushing. I'm just throwing your stuff out there.
That's fine.
Definitely, man. We want you to be, we want you to just be connected. And, if there's some money on the table, man, let's pick that up. Yeah. That's how we looking at it.
And then keep the fight going. If you see something water related that still can be sued, hey,
let's explore it.
Let's put it on the floor.
Yeah. All right, man. Y'all peace and blessings, man. Black out.